Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be looking at the brand new Sanctifers datasheet that has been released by Games Workshop. This is an Imperial Agents datasheet, which means it can be used by all Imperial forces as an allied unit. That includes his Imperial Guard, the Emperor's true finest. And let me say, I really like the look of these guys. A very spicy unit, which has the potential to be a fantastic screening force. Loaded up with oodles of flamers and at a reasonable price point, the Sanctifiers very well may have a place in your guard army. A bold statement indeed. We're going to have to back this up. And so without further ado, let's dive right into this thing. First things first, it's important to understand where to get this datasheet from. It's on Warhammer Community and it is under the Other Rules section. Now you can see there are actually two Sanctified datasheets, one for the Imperial Agents and one for the Sisters of Battle. For our purposes, we need to be looking at the Imperial Agents one because there are actually a few key differences between these datasheets, and if you download the wrong one, you'll be using, well, the wrong datasheet. So make sure you go for the Imperial Agents one. With that all cleared up, now let's get into the datasheet proper, and we'll start off with that ever important stat line. Sanctifiers have a movement value of 6 inches. Normally, I would say that's okay, a little bit slow, but for a lot of guard units, not a problem because you can use things like orders like move to boost that movement up quite significantly. But remember, you can't order Sanctifiers. They are not guard units, they are allied Imperial Agent units. So 6 inches is about as fast as they're going to go unless you decide to advance them. And they don't have a lot of assault weapons, so that would kind of get rid of one of the big reasons for taking them. However, do not panic because they do have scouts 6 inches. So between the scouts and the movement 6, these guys are actually pretty good as being an initial first wave, an initial first screen. They can scout forward aggressively, then they can move forward, and that will give them a decent threat range. So the movement 6 is slow, but at least they've got some way of boosting it. And so overall, I think they're reasonably fast. Also, don't forget that these guys can go inside an Imperial Rhino. That's also in the Imperial Agents book. Any Imperial Agents can go inside that Imperial Rhino, so they could scout 6 inch inside the Rhino and then use the Rhino's movement and then get out, and that's another way of boosting this somewhat meh movement. Moving on from their movement stat, let's have a look at their defensive capabilities. Toughness 3 isn't much to write home about. A 6+ save is absolutely nothing to write home about. And 1 wound. That would initially make you think these guys were kind of crappy, but they do have a 5+ invulnerable save. That makes them quite interesting. I still think they're going to die. I still think they're going to get swept pretty quickly. I mean, after all, T3 just means that they're going to have enough wounds stacked on them that they'll just burn through fairly quickly. But it does mean that your opponent can't just get rid of them with some spare or some plasma firepower or anything like that. They are actually going to need to put in a fair amount of small arms into these guys to efficiently get rid of them. But if I'm going to be brutally honest, I don't think the 5% save totally saves them. I think it's kind of nice. It might spike every now and again, but these guys are T3 models. They're going to get swept away if your opponent wants to kill them. But honestly, that's not too bad. That's not such a big problem. You should be thinking of these guys as a disposable, annoying screening unit, which is potentially very powerful in the upcoming meta. But I'm getting ahead of myself slightly, so we'll just come back to that one in a moment. Finishing off the datasheet, they've got Leadership 7 and Objective Control of 1. OC1 is what you would kind of expect from allied sort of elite unit like this, or semi-elite unit like this. Leadership 7 is kind of low, but fortunately, and we are just skipping ahead here slightly, they do have the ability to improve that leadership by 1. So most of the time, you'll probably be actually running around with Leadership 6, which is pretty good. To sum up this entire thing, these guys are the equivalent of a unit of guardsmen with a 5+ invulnerable save. That's about as fast and as durable that you can expect them to be. Now that we've covered the stat line of the models within the unit, now let's actually look at the individual models, the squad makeup, the unit composition of this thing. Considering this unit is based off a kill team, it should be no surprise that there's an absolute smorgasbord of different individual models in this squad. Whilst they all share the same stat line, they all do very different things in terms of their equipment and their abilities. First up, we've got the Mirror Cultist, who is equipped with Holy Fire and Burning Hands. We've got a Salvationist, who has got a Close Combat Weapon and a Salvationist Medkit. We've got a Death Cult Assassin with Death Cult Blades, 2 Missionaries. Each missionary, one missionary comes equipped with a Plasma Gun and a Sanctified Melee Weapon. 1 missionary comes equipped with a Ministorum Flamer and a Sanctified Melee Weapon. And then the 4 regular Sanctifiers come equipped with Ministorum Hand Flamers and Sanctifier Melee Weapons. We'll get to what all of these different weapons do in a moment, but first, whilst we're here, let's look at the war gear options. You can have 1 missionary model, can have its plasma gun replaced with a melter gun, but you probably don't want to do that because 1 missionary model equipped with a plasma gun can also be equipped with 1 Holy Fire. This is really cool because remember, when you're firing weapons, even if you're an infantry model, you can fire all of your pistols or all of your other weapons. So if you go down the melter gun route, you don't get to take the Holy Fire. If you go down the plasma gun route, then your missionary can fire his plasma gun and the Holy Fire in the same turn. As for the Sanctifiers, 1 Sanctifier can have its Sanctifier melee weapon replaced with 1 Ministorum Hand Flamer and 1 Close Combat Weapon. So if we look at what the Sanctifiers are equipped with, essentially what that would mean is you would have a guy with double Hand Flamer. Now remember, you can fire all pistols or all of the weapons. As these would both be pistols, you could have a guy who's firing double Hand Flamer in 1 turn. So I really like the idea of that, and I would absolutely go for the double Hand Flamer dude every time, because as you see, these guys aren't that good in close combat, so you might as well go for more flamey flames. Finally, 1 Sanctifier can have its Sanctifier melee weapon replace 1 close combat weapon and 1 Simulacrum Imperialis. You're going to want to do that. Again, Sanctifier melee weapons, as we'll see in a moment, really aren't much to write home about. You might as well go for the leadership buff. That might allow you to use stratagems on these guys, and of course will also allow you to have some OC. And whilst they're not very OC intensive, having it is better than not having it. But what do all these different weapons do, and why have I said you should take some over others? Well, let's get into them right now. So Holy Fire is ignores cover, 1-shot torrent, essentially a 1-shot flamer. It's actually very good though, because it's got a 12-inch range, D6 shots, strength 6, AP -1, damage 2? Damage 2? Strength 6? I like that a lot. Yeah, it's only 1 shot, but I still really like that. And don't forget, you will get 2 Holy Fires out of 1 squad, because the Mirror Cultist comes with Holy Fire, and we can have our Plasma Gun guy with a Holy Fire as well. So even though it initially looks like you only get 1 shot out of this, you will get 2 1-shot weapons. That makes for, if timed well, a hell of a burst of damage. The Melter Gun is a standard Melter Gun, very similar to what you can find in the Guard Codex. And we're not going to be too worried about this anyway, because we're planning on taking the Plasma Gun with the Holy Fire. We then get to all of the Ministorum Flamers, both the regular Flamer and the Hand Flamer. These are better than your average Guard Flamer, because they're the Sisters of Battle version. For those that don't know, Sisters of Battle basically get +1 strength flamers over everybody else. So in this squad, we'll have 1 of these. Remember, we have 1 missionary that comes equipped with the Ministorum Flamer. And that's strength 5. It's still AP dash, but at least it is ignore cover. And then you've got the Ministorum Hand Flamer, which ignores cover, torrent, 12 inches, blah, blah, blah. And for us, this is the equivalent of just a regular Guard Flamer. And if you actually add up how many of these Flamer or Flamer equivalent weapons that you're getting between the Holy Fire, the Ministorum Flamer, and the Hand Flamers, you actually get a total of 8 on one squad of 9 models, because you have the Mirror Cultist, who has got 1. You have with Holy Fire. You've got the Plasma Gun guy who's also taking Holy Fire, so that's 2. You've got the guy with the Minister and Flamer, that's 3. Each Sanctifier comes with a Hand Flamer, so that's 7. But one of your Sanctifiers can take an extra Hand Flamer, so that's 8. 8 in one turn, potentially 8d6 auto-hitting weapons. From the equivalent of a regular Flamer up to almost a heavy Flamer here, just missing the AP. And then with the really punchy Holy Fire, that is a hell of a lot of auto hits. And that is a hell of a lot of Overwatch. But wait, there's more. Because you can add a Ministorum Priest to this unit as well. And if you, or an Inquisitor, and whichever one you add to the... But wait, there's more, because you can actually attach a Ministorum Priest or an Inquisitor model to this unit as well. Now, these have to be from the Imperial Agents. You can't add your Imperial Guard Ministorum Priest to the unit, unfortunately. But they are essentially the same datasheet, so it doesn't matter too much. And in fact, if you add the Ministorum Priest or the Inquisitor to the unit, then they don't lose out on Scout. There's a little bit here that says basically the leaders get Scout as well, so it doesn't slow the unit down. Now, I've had a look at the various Inquisitors that you could add, and the Priest as well. You wouldn't really bother with any of the Inquisitors, even just a basic Inquisitor. It doesn't really add to this Overwatch potential. But the Ministorum Priest is a different kettle of fish, because you do get Zealot's Vindicator, which is another Flamer weapon. It's 12-inch range, it's D6 attacks, it's strength 5, it's damage 1. It's like adding essentially another Ministorum Flamer to the squad. Now, I suppose the big question is it worth spending 40 points on a Ministorum Priest? I suspect it's probably not, because that starts getting the unit into relatively expensive territory, whereas if you just stick with the 9 models, I think you're getting plenty of Overwatch potential. You don't want to start making it an expensive screening unit. You want it to be a disposable screening unit. But going back to the Sanctifier's datasheet proper, we've looked at their shooting, we've looked at their Overwatch potential. Let's, for the sake of completeness, look at melee. Now, the Burning Hands is you get 1 set of Burning Hands. That is on the Mirror Cultist. It's a good weapon at strength 6, AP -2, damage 3, hitting on a 2. It's a damn good weapon, and it's got Death Runes, but you only get 1 attack, essentially putting the hands on the person and trying to like purge them with the Spirit of the Emperor or something like that. It's very, very cool, but 1 attack is not really enough. It might come in clutch every now and again. The rest of your guys are going to be armed with either Sanctifier melee weapons or close combat weapons. And you can see now why I was saying don't worry about swapping out Sanctifier melee weapons for close combat weapons. They're identical. You just get 1 more attack. But they're still a bunch of strength 3 attacks with no AP, 1 damage. So you don't really care about them. The Death Cult Blades is also interesting. You get 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 4, AP -2, damage 1. Essentially 4 Power Sword attacks, hitting on 2s. They're okay. I mean, if you add it all up, you're going to get 1 Burning Hands, 4 Death Cult Blades, and then a whole bunch of these sort of strength 3 attacks. But I just don't think there's quite enough there to make these guys a viable melee unit, even if you take advantage of their ability, where if you add the Priest, you get to add +1 to the wound roll. That does only affect their melee attacks. Again, I see the potential of these guys as being 8 scouting, relatively affordable Flamers. Think about this in comparison to a unit of Catachans. If you want to take a unit of Catachans and get 4 Flamers in there and use that as a decent Overwatch unit, that's 120 points. If you want to compare them to like a Hellhound, Hellhound is cheaper, but it's still 125 points. The Hellhound max is going to get 3 Flamers, essentially. You've got the Inferno Cannon, which is 2d6, and you've got the Heavy Flame, which is 1d6. But if we compare these guys to a Hellhound, it's like, well, hang on. The Holy Fire, yeah, it's only one shot, but if we're using these guys aggressively, we're probably only going to get one shot out of it. Well, the Holy Fire is kind of the equivalent, not including the range, to the Inferno Cannon of the Hellhound. In fact, it's one less AP, but it's more damage, but it's kind of equivalent there. And then we've got our Minister and Flamer, and then we've got all of these other hand flamers. So I actually think these guys do better Overwatch and better sort of deterrence to your opponent than a Hellhound does. And I can't stress this enough. I really think these guys are an ultimate Overwatch unit. Even if you're not facing a melee army, these guys are really good potential. Think about this. You frontline them. You roll off. Your opponent gets first turn. You aggressively scout move these guys 6 inches forward. You then use the 12-inch range on all of the flamers to basically just lock down one objective. Your opponent then has a really difficult decision to make. Do they push on to that objective, which they're going to want to do if they want to start scoring primary points from turn 2 onwards? Do they push on to that objective and then just eat your Overwatch from 8d6 flamers? Or do they not push on to that objective, therefore potentially giving up some primary points? Now, sure, in this process, you're probably going to lose the whole Sanctifier unit. Depends on the terrain you're playing on, how dense it is, what the fire angles are, of course. But let's just presume you do that. But what's happened is you have, from the beginning of the game, limited your opponent's movement. And he's going to miss out on turn 2 scoring on primary. And if he doesn't move on to the objective until turn 2, it then gives you the opportunity to have moved up, staged your own unit to potentially drive him off it again, really denying his primary scoring. These guys are a really good primary denial unit. And if you end up facing an assault army that wants to go full bore at you from the get-go, World Eaters, or potentially you've also got the Emperor's Children. If you especially look at these guys versus like the new Goremongers, the World Eaters might try and pin you in early on. Having it as Sanctifiers that can just go away. Goremongers, goremong this. Just flame them to death. I like them. I really like them. They're just cheap enough. They're not cheap, but they're just cheap enough that I'm willing to throw a unit into my army. And they come with just the right amount of Overwatch, if not an excessive amount of Overwatch, to really make your opponent have to think. And here's the icing on the cake. The meta's shifting. The meta is changing. If these guys had come out at the beginning of 10th edition, I wouldn't recommend them. I wouldn't think they were very good. Why? Because at the beginning of 10th edition, it was all about vehicles and monsters. But the edition has moved on. The meta has changed. Now it's all about elite infantry armies. You've got the likes of Eldar, just with Cult of Ye just dominating. And lots of other armies are moving towards elite infantry style play as well. Well, these guys are absolutely fine with burning the crap out of infantry. Even if they come across a bunch of Marines, it's fine. Their hand flamers are all strength 4. The Holy Fire is damage 2, perfect for slotting Marines who try anything too fruity. So these guys have dropped at just the right time to make them relevant in the emerging melee-dominated, elite infantry-orientated meta. Now, you might be thinking one thing. These weapons are very random. It's a lot of d6. You could roll like ass. Well, fortunately, they do come with another ability, which is once per battle. Bear in mind, you're only expecting them to last once, so this is fine. You can target this unit with the command reroll strategy for 0 speed and could do so even if you've already targeted a different unit with that strat in this phase. So let's say you roll your Holy Fire and you roll like a 1 and a 2. For the low price of 3, you can be like, command reroll, bang, reroll that 1. So they've even got they've got redundancy in terms of just the raw number of random shots you find, the raw number of d6s you're throwing at there. Surely it should balance out. But they've also got redundancy that if you really need one of the big boom booms to go off, you've got the Chev to make that happen. And all of this has been through the lens of Overwatch. And I've really been hammering the Overwatch drum. But it is important to understand that these guys aren't a one-trick pony. They are actually a relatively flexible unit. Firstly, they have the grenades keyword. So if you think, you know what, I don't want to aggressively scout move these guys, I don't want them out in the open, there's just a good chance based on where deployment is that my opponent's not going to be going after the objective that these guys happen to be able to cover, that's fine. Scout move them defensively. Use them as a second wave counter punch unit. Maybe you've got something like Bulgrin at the front which take the punch. Sanctifiers play a little bit more conservatively. Go behind the Bulgrin. The Bulgrin take the punch. Bulgrin then fall back. Sanctifiers move forward. Unleash hell. Full bore with the holy fire, the plasma gun, because they've still got a plasma gun, don't forget that. They've still got some decent AP there. And then you've also got all the flamers, you've got the CP reroll, chuck some grenades at them as well. That grenades means that realistically they can actually punch up quite well into a lot of units, because even if it's a tougher unit, the grenades are mortal wounds. At the end of the day, mortal wounds are fantastic against all targets. And like we said, you can also put these guys inside an Imperial Rhino. That will fundamentally change the way you want to think about them, of course, because that will start putting them up in points towards what, like 170 points for an Imperial Rhino plus Sanctifiers, somewhere in that ballpark. That means they're not a disposable cheap unit anymore, but it still means they are a unit that's bringing a lot of firepower and grenades to the table. And again, you could use them as part of a mechanized force, as part of a counter punch force, and they can shoot those flamers out the top of the Rhino as well. So they're flexible. I think primarily you want to see them through the lens of Overwatch and Objective Deniers. I think that you probably want to stay away from the Preacher and the Rhino unless you've got a specific game plan in mind, because that will start boosting the points up. But you can either use them as frontline aggressive units or second wave counter punch units. However you slice it, they've got play. And so based on all that, I really like them. I think they are a really key tool in the Guard toolbox, because we have lost a lot of our traditional counter melee options. Bulgrin are quite expensive. Catachans are more expensive than they were. And our indirect fire options are a bit meh. Honestly, the main way Guard seems to deal with melee oriented armies these days is to Overwatch and to try and just speed bump people. Well, these guys have got great Overwatch and they're cheap enough to be a speed bump. Don't dismiss them. And I do think putting a squad of them in your army is not a bad idea. Would I go for 2 squads? I think going for 1 squad over, let's say, like a platoon of Catachans makes sense. If you start committing to 2 squads, which I think is probably the maximum you can take with the assigned agents rules, I'm not against that. But I do think that at that point you are spending 10% of your overall army points on these guys. And so they are going to have to be a significant factor in your game plan. But I could see 2 squads of these. I could see that doing well. Of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you a fan of the new Sanctifiers? Do you think that they will do well? Do you think they help Guard in this melee meta? Or do you think that you're better off sticking to your tried and true and tested big blobs of Guardsmen? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.